Welcome to another episode of Beyond Sunday, where we keep it real with faith and life because, as you all know, life be lifing. And we're going to really talk about how some life is life in this world because we are talking faith and finances. And we're actually doing it with two special guests. First, we have Philip Brown.
Hi.
There we go. There we go. I was waiting for the hi. And Kristin Hall.
Hi.
And as you all know, we also do it with myself, Julian, Luke, and Pastor Thomas.
Hello.
This is the first quad show that we've ever had. So we're going to try to make this thing work. For the first time, I may not say a lot. I know y'all are happy for that. But inside of the comments, we want to see all of your thoughts as we're going through this. Don't forget to like, share, and do all of the great things as we're going through this. I'm going to go ahead and start this thing off. Let's just kick it up. What's one financial mistake we've all made at least once?
For me, it probably would have been back in college. Back when I was in college, they would have credit card companies that would come to campus, set up tables, and you could sign up for a credit card. And I signed up for a credit card. No job.
I don't know. I don't know if that... I guess because of the naivety, I don't even know if that's a word. Mm-hmm. But when you go to college, they make it seem like everything for you. So is that really a mistake?
Oh yeah, that
you
was
ain't
a
no
mistake.
better.
Oh no, that's a mistake.
I mean, it is a mistake.
Yes,
long term.
That's so predatory.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You're naive. You don't know.
Well, then they give you a free T-shirt.
Free T-shirt and a free credit card. Yeah.
Free
You got a T-shirt?
Party.
Yeah.
If you just apply.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Kristin, what you got?
So also in college, we used to get refund checks, and I didn't blow my refund check, but I wish I would have spent it differently for sure.
I blew mine.
100%.
Without question. I wasted. I mean, out of state kid, you ain't never really had money like that, and you get a $2,000 refund check.
You made it, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna get one every year. No, it was just 1 year.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, no, it was just 1 year. Yeah, out of state.
I'm still stuck on the pizza party thing. That's actually insane. For me, I think it was more so putting all of my eggs in one basket. In college, again, saved up all of my money, bought a 2009 Honda Civic Cash, and I thought I was rolling. It turned out to be a lemon. And I put a lot of money into it, and that's when I realized, wow, I probably should not have done that. So I should have been more, strategic about it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's my turn. I don't know. I feel like I've been pretty decent on some things, but I guess if anything, I would definitely say one of the things I did. So every year we had this thing called, in my band director world, we have this thing called TMEA conference. And so we go to San Antonio and, we go to this conference for music educators. And for all of us, it's a time where we can just kind of relax and all that because we have competition coming up once we get back. Well, one time when, money was looking really good and, I was in my backsliding days. We all had some backsliding days. I went and just completely balled out. Drinks was flowing. We were going out every night to the club. Like, yeah. I look back on it now, and I don't think that was very smart. So, yeah. That was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I can't relate to that one, but you got it, though.
Yeah, man. Yeah, backsliding days are real, man. All right. Why does it feel like money disappears faster on the weekend than during the week?
Because you got time to spend it. The week, I feel like my week is so full that unless it's like an Amazon purchase, grocery store, I just don't have time to spend it. The weekend, you browsing, window shopping, scrolling, and you spend more.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would say, depending off what Kristin said, you definitely have the time. But I also think, again, I'm going to say this a lot. Your budget just is not accounting for, maybe having a leisure line item or something to keep track of. Like, hey, once the weekend hits, this is how much we can spend. I think that's something that typically gets people caught up, in losing more money over the weekend.
Okay. All right. PT, you got anything or no? You good?
No, I mean, I think that impulsive spending, like, You're probably more likely to impulsively spend on the weekend because you do have like more leisure time to do things. So, I would say that's probably one of the bigger things for me would be just being more impulsive on the weekends.
A lot of people do a lot of retail therapy too. And so maybe after a long weekend or after a long week, it's like, I deserve this. And so they may tend to splurge because they're just trying to drown the pressures from the week away.
Okay.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I've never heard of retail
I
therapy.
like that.
before. That is.
Oh, you never heard of that?
I've never heard of that.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing for real.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a person who likes to like randomly spend. That's not me. I've never been that person. So for me, I don't. That's why I guess why I've never heard of it because that's just not a thing for me. If I don't have it, I just don't have it. I'm not pressed. I don't have FOMO for stuff. So.
Well, now, as PT always says, whenever you're around a coffee maker and someone asks you, what did you learn? You can say you learned about retail therapy.
Yep.
I don't drink coffee.
Water, hot chocolate, something.
Okay. Got you. All right. So before we get into our next question, I did want to take time to actually allow these two to be able to tell what they do. So first we're going to start with Kristin. Kristin, tell us what you do, what your job is, and why you are really good at finances.
Yeah. So the why I'm really good at finances, I just liked like working with money and numbers from an early age. Math was always my favorite subject. I remember being a kid, and when people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said a corporate lawyer, didn't happen, and a financial advisor. And that actually did happen. So I went to school for finance, got my MBA, and got an internship early on in finance and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then started at the company I'm at now in 2009, like right after graduating, a week after graduation. And have done various things. So I've been a trader. I have led multiple teams. And right now, my team is focused on financial planning and wealth strategies for high net worth clients. So we work with financial advisors and consult the FA or the clients around tax planning, estate planning, insurance planning, investments planning, retirement planning, the whole gamut.
Oh, wow. Wow. You accomplished.
God is good, and it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Enjoy it.
All right. So I want to get into the next question, and then we'll come back with Phil. All right. So next question. What's the biggest misconception people in our community have about wealth or money management?
So I would say a lot of times looks can be deceiving. A lot of people think that, so two things really, but the first one is looks can be deceiving. So you may see someone that has all of the luxury items and the glamorous things, but they may not be as well off as you think that they are, right? And there's a lot of things that sometimes you may see somebody that has a super nice car, but maybe they're behind and living paycheck to paycheck, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just understanding or knowing that there's not a secret to become ultra wealthy. Right. Sometimes you're just at the right place at the right time, or as I like to say, you're blessed. But I have friends from college. I know that the rich, the billionaires, they know that there's a secret. They don't want to share it. But a lot of it is just being at the right place at the right time, surrounding yourself with the right people, and, kind of taking that risk. And, I really believe that, and planning, of course. But yeah, that's what I would say. Those two things.
People just faking the funk, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to look like I got it, but I ain't got nothing.
Absolutely, yes.
I would say that poor decisions scale with paychecks. Just because if a person has a poor decision making around money, it doesn't get better the more money you have. So there's kind of, I think, this myth that if we make more money or have higher income, that we'll have more disposable income, have more or better savings. But poor decision making will scale no matter what your paycheck is. So I think that's why sometimes you can see in society a person who makes this amount of money able to manage their resources in a way that allows them to do far more than a person that makes a lot more, because the person who makes a lot more is making poor decisions. So just the idea of making more money doesn't mean your decision making gets better.
What if you have good decision making, but you actually don't have that much money still?
I mean, I have seen people who don't have that much money still be able to live a contented, comfortable life, even with that. They make very wise decisions with their money.
Because it's really about how you manage it. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's hard. And I think people tend to avoid finance talk altogether, especially investments talk, because I don't understand it. It's hard. What does this mean? They told me to pick a track for my 401k. How do I do that? I heard people lost all their money in the stock market. I don't trust it. And so I think it's just some myths out there that that people are like, I'd rather just avoid it. And that's what they do.
Interesting. So Phil, you've been on this show, quite a few times. Yeah. But I want you to go ahead and reintroduce yourself. Let everybody know what you do with finances, and all the good things.
So, hi everyone. My name is Philip Brown, of course. So I own my own firm. It's called Echo Advisory Solutions. It's a consulting, kind of a financial consulting / accounting firm. I pretty much help businesses, small businesses, really from small to mid-sized businesses, manage their finances and really get them on the path to create kind of that financial foundation for success. My career started at Goldman Sachs, so I was on the private equity side, and then that led me to working for a super high net worth individual family in Dallas, and then another high net worth individual, and managing like billions of dollars and seeing how they plan accordingly and kind of manage just excess fund size. I just decided to help other people. I feel like there's a lot of tips and secrets not really secrets, but just things that people can use. And I wanted to help out smaller businesses. So that's kind of my purpose. I just didn't want to help the ultra wealthy continue to stay rich. I want to help, people that's on the smaller side get to that point. Yeah.
So with people like you two, do you have to really love math?
I don't think so.
No, yeah.
I think it's more concept than math. I mean, you got a computer to run everything for you. Computer's a calculator. So if you get it conceptually, then you don't have to. But it is a bonus.
Okay.
Yeah, I like every subject in school just about, but math was my favorite. But no, I actually have a shirt that says I am an accountant, but I'm really good at numbers. That's a myth. You don't have to be good at numbers to be an accountant. You can just, like Kristin said, the software. And it's really more kind of theory than anything, I guess, when you think about it. Right. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, when we start talking about one of the things that we don't know about wealth, that I don't think we generally understand how money grows, right? So we don't understand what to do. We tend to think of money as being something very short-term and disposable. I've got X amount of dollars to do X amount of things, right? To take care of the necessities of life. But we don't tend to think about how money grows. And when we look at people like the ultra wealthy, their money grows. And sometimes because they have larger amounts of money, their money can grow more rapidly depending on what they're invested in. But even no matter what we have, I don't think we tend to understand the concept of, how a little bit of money placed somewhere, compounded over time, can grow pretty significantly if we leave it alone. If we put it there and leave it alone. And so I think we don't tend to understand that. We have a very short-sighted view sometimes about money and the idea of what it means to have wealth, or even our concept of wealth. In the United States of America, if you're in this country, you're most likely wealthy compared to the majority of the world. That's right. But by comparison, we would say no, but by comparison, we are already a wealthy nation, individually wealthy in how we manage that. So I think there was a point in time where I thought it was all about understanding the numbers, but then I think you're right. I agree with you, Kristin. It's more about understanding the concept of what to do with money and learning strategies around how it grows, right? And how it begins to, just compound over time.
Yeah.
And we can simplify it too. I think some people want to get into highly complex strategies that some of the ultra wealthy use, but when you're talking about everyday people, you can simplify it. Walk into your bank today, say, I want to invest in a mutual fund. Give them $50 a month to put in a mutual fund for you. Leave it alone and watch how it compounds over time. And if you can afford it, do $200 a month. And that systematic investing is going to grow your money. And a mutual fund is a very diverse asset in and of itself. And so you are less exposed to risk and all of these other things. And so we don't have to overcomplicate it. We can just invest and watch the money grow. And years from now, go into retirement with a hefty sum because we set it and forget it.
Do you think, and I think both of what you all said is very valuable, but I don't know. I think I look at the definitions of understanding and then knowledge, right? Like, I don't even think we've had the knowledge to be able to even understand it. So do you think it's a lack of understanding or a lack of knowledge?
Absolutely both.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's probably both. Yeah.
And it's the availability of that knowledge specifically in our community, I think,
Correct.
that that plagues us even more. So yes, it's creating spaces where we can share the knowledge and then deepening our understanding so that we can make those moves. But it's not complicated. And that's the biggest myth that I hope we can debunk today is like the complexity of investing in finance.
Okay.
Yeah, you said something that I think is interesting when you said walk into your bank and say, hey, I want to put $50 in a mutual fund, right? Like that's a very direct, tangible way to go in and do something, you know, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put $50 in this. And I also think the other thing is that our philosophy and theology and all that stuff around money has to evolve and develop, and we have to have something that we understand. Because a lot of times our philosophy about money really has to do more with survival. Like we just look at money as a tool to survive rather than, hey, this is a tool that can be used not only to survive, but can be used to thrive too.
It's an asset.
So we could be able to invest and we can be able to grow and then we could be able to do other things with money. You know, I heard you mention things like even insurance. Like we don't sometimes even think about how insurance or whole insurance policies that maybe have annuities attached to them is another way of being able to do it, and whether or not that works for you. And does that make sense for you? Does that make sense for your family? And from a knowledge perspective, putting ourselves in positions where we can gain that knowledge. Like Philip, you were talking about earlier, being around ultra wealthy people, high net individuals, you begin to hear and pick up tips and hacks. You know, it's relative when they're doing $1 million, $5 million, but you're like, I can use the same thing and do $500. I'm not gonna get the same result they get, but it still applies. Like the same knowledge still applies. So putting it in proximity. I also think, not that anybody asked me, but I also think that the church could do a better job of bringing knowledge to the body of Christ about how to be able to use money in an effective way. So we tend to talk about generosity primarily, you know, focused on the mission and the objectives of the church. That's great, and we definitely should do that, but we should also talk about how those strategies and things like that should apply personally. Like, how do we do that personally?
100%. And to me, that's stewardship, right? It's how am I stewarding what God has given me wisely? And a portion of that includes generosity. Another portion of that is, it's one thing to tithe the 10%, but how am I managing the 90? And God is going to hold me accountable for that as well. And so some of those things that we can learn through exposure to that knowledge and deepening our understanding allows us to manage the 90 well.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about that survival mode, because I want to kind of jump into that whole knowledge of, right? So, and I'm thinking about this economy, right? Gas is, you know, gassing right now. Groceries is grocerying. And so I want to give a scenario here, just to kind of paint a picture. You know, someone makes $40,000 a year. They have one kid, right? Immediately, they're going to think survival mode, right? Because I got to make sure that there's gas in the car, insurance is paid, you know, bills are paid, food is in my child's, you know, mouth, and then I got to eat too, right? So what does that look like financially when we start talking about, you know, making the best decisions financially and making sure that that money is working for them and they're not in that survival mode?
So I would say, you know, again, it starts kind of with that budget. Like having a budget is really the foundation of everything financial. And when I say that, hey, this is something that the ultra wealthy did, it was the most basic principles, you know, just seeing, hey, what's coming in and what's going out. Whenever you know what's coming in and you know what's going out, now you can kind of build up a plan to figure out, hey, what can I put aside to invest in like a mutual fund, like Kristin said, right? Or what can I put aside for a rainy day or emergency fund? You know, I think it all trickles down back to this basic principle that maybe they say, hey, I don't have the time to do it, but we make time for the things that we want. If you have time to swipe on TikTok all day and look at, 5-second clips that are literally created to keep you in this trance, then I feel like you have time to at least take 15 minutes to look at a budget and kind of understand, hey, this is what's coming in and what's going out.
Nothing to add. I think budgeting is key, like at every area in our financial growth, right? So from the $20,000 salary to the $40,000 salary to the $140,000 to the $400,000, budgeting is key. So I would echo everything Philip said.
So I want to go back to something Philip said that I think that probably goes along with what you're saying in terms of survival. So part of our conversation has been about the idea of investment, right? That's kind of where the undertone of what we talked about. However, to your point about survival, what about the person that you said, like, I'm making $40,000 a year with one kid? Investment is not something that's really on the radar for me. But what you said, Philip, about the concept of rainy day emergency fund, I think can be a strategy that can be on the table maybe for a person that is not in a position where they feel like, okay, I can invest. Because the question is not whether or not you're going to have an emergency, it's really when, right? And the emergency doesn't have to be something catastrophic. It could be child needs a cavity, could be a blowout on tire, it could be something that's relatively benign, but still financially can set you back. So I'm asking the question to the two of you, to the person that maybe feels like in their position, investing is not where they are. Would you potentially encourage moving down the path of, hey, you do need an emergency fund? Can you begin to squirrel away a little bit of money for an emergency?
Yeah, 100%. So if you are a single person with one child, you actually want to have like 6 months of an emergency fund in place. Single person, no children, 3 months. For married individuals, if both spouses are working, you want to have at least 3 months of an emergency fund. If only one spouse is working or is a primary breadwinner, then you want to have at least 6 months of an emergency fund. So that is essential because it buffers you against the catastrophic situations, like you said. And I like to think of it in two buckets. So there's an emergency fund and there's the rainy day fund. Your rainy day fund is for the cavities, the car blowout, 4 new pair of tires. My husband be tripping every time we got to replace tires. It's a trip. So that stuff, that's the rainy day fund. The emergency fund is when there's been a loss of income in the household. So someone loses their job, someone gets demoted, or something else happens. That's when you go into your emergency fund. So having both of those will help everyone. So whether or not you're ultra high net worth or you're not, having those two buckets of money in place for rainy days and emergencies is essential.
So whenever I was in college, as I mentioned earlier, I wasted some money on a car. I was, I think, 18. I had just turned 18 or 19 when I started kind of to try to create this plan. So I was working part-time because I was a full-time student, but I would always say, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open an account at like a Capital One or somewhere that has a high interest savings account. And I'm going to physically take this money to this bank. And I'm only going to open maybe a savings account, or if I get a checking account, I'm not going to have a debit card to it, right? So I can't spend it. So I physically would have to get in the car, drive 15 minutes to go to the bank to take it out. And that's kind of like a control that I put in place to ensure that, okay, I'm sitting in the car 15 minutes in traffic. Do I really need to go get this money out to go buy whatever it is I want to buy, right? So over the course of a couple of years, I was able to save. It was probably about $10,000. And I'm in college. Remember, we're broke in college, but I'm saving, just putting up, every time I get paid, a couple $100 every check. Granted, I was fortunate because I didn't have to pay a lot of stuff like rent and stuff, but it's just the idea of doing that. And it added up, as PT was saying, something that it builds and builds over time. So that's what I would say on that part.
And I want to say that the first thing I heard when Kristin said, okay, rainy day fund, and started talking about 3 months, 6 months of income, immediately, in my head, I'm thinking this person is this example person that we're talking about $40,000 a year is probably sitting there going, 3 months of income, like that's
Yeah, I was thinking the same. In my brain, I'm sitting up here like, all right, so that sounds good, right?
Right.
But
But here's what I want to say. What I had to remind myself was what Philip just talked about. You don't go from zero
Right.
to the 3 months or the 6 months. You're building. And in the process of the building, yes, something may happen, but if it does, you're not sitting with zero. You're sitting with something, right? And if it's there for that particular reason. So if it starts to drizzle, maybe it's not a full rain, but if it starts to drizzle for some reason and you're tapping into it, okay, good. I can still buffer myself. I can still keep myself afloat. And then when the rain stops, then I'm able to go back, right? So it could be some start and stop to getting to that 3 months. But I think my initial thought was 3 months. Oh, if I'm at zero and it's going to be 3 months to start, I just can't get there. But I think we have to remind ourselves that it's a building process. Like you got to build to that. And while you're building, you still have it.
Right.
It's still yours.
Right.
It's still there.
Right.
you know, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. You know, I tend to think a lot of times about that. Well, let me ask you guys a question before I get to that point.
Can I clarify something before?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if I said 3 months of income, I misspoke. It's 3 months of your like critical expenses. So your house payment, your car payment, like the things that you absolutely have to pay. So you want to make sure you have that in reserve. And to your point, it's not a just throw it on over in that account. It's something that you build up over time. So I did the same thing in college. Sophomore year, I only drove to the bank once though. After that, I just said, take this out of my account. And all I could do was 50 at the time. And so I just did 50 in a mutual fund. And by the time I graduated, it was like $10,000. And I was like, oh, this kind of works.
Right.
And so, yes, it's just a little bit over time, whatever you can scrape off the top. And get it in there. And I'm happy you mentioned that because sometimes it does feel daunting or overwhelming for people. And so that's when we go into like fight or flight mode and we're like, I'd rather not. But it doesn't have to be. You just put in what you can when you can.
Yeah. So the question I wanted to ask is, do you think that the average person lives above their means?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So then when we start talking about this, like saving these portions, right? Do you believe that half of the reasons why most people struggle with that idea is because they're living above their means? So I'll put it in this context. I don't want to live in the trap. So I want to get a place that, you know, if I have that one kid, that same scenario, $40,000 one kid, I want to live in an area that, you know, my kid can go to a pretty decent school. I don't have to worry about these things around me, so on and so forth. So I'm now in a house that I probably am paying too much for. And so now I'm, you know, in the terms house poor. But now you're saying I got to save. Well, I can't save, right? Or the mindset is I can't save. What do you say to that person?
I mean, it goes back to the budget, right? Like if you know that, then you have to readjust. So in the budgeting class that I taught a couple of weeks ago here at the church, I actually talked about that. You know, maybe you allocate a certain amount of money towards food or towards leisure, right? If now you have this change in your expenses where your house is now the most important expense or the greatest expense that you have, a larger expense, maybe you can't eat out the same way that you were eating out whenever you stayed in the trap, as you say, right? Like maybe you can't go to McDonald's or take your child to, you know, I don't know, something that kids like to do over the weekend. Maybe you have to kind of switch that up, right? Maybe you have to change that leisure fund or whatever the case is. So that's what I would say. First, look at that and see what you can adjust.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that, you know, is there a possibility that person could be in a position where they are living beyond their means and the concept of saving or emergency fund is just out of reach? That is possible, right? So, yeah, that's 100% possible. So what do we do in those situations? I think we do begin to evaluate, is there room in the budget to begin to cut costs? Like, are there places we can cut unnecessary costs? You may not be able to do that on housing, but maybe there are other rare areas where you can begin to shave back costs, or you could begin to look at what are ways to, you know, change my income situation. I hear people say, well, you know, I live on a fixed income. I'm like, we all live on a fixed income. Like, everybody's on fixed income. Like, most careers, most jobs pay a specific thing, and that's what you're gonna get paid. So it's fixed. Like, it doesn't necessarily change. If it does, it's not that much. But I just think that we begin to look at those things. And do people live outside their means? Yes, I do think they do. But again, I think that scales, right? So we're talking about a person that makes $40,000 a year. I'm sure the two of you have seen people who make $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year and live outside their means. And we would think that is wild. Like, who does that? Yeah, it's just those poor decisions can just scale. They scale with the paycheck.
And I feel like it really happens at a lot of times it's even at kind of that higher level. I know business owners that literally probably gross 50, 60 million a year. And I swear you would think that they thought they were the richest people on earth, but they have 20 cars and they have all these expensive things. And then when you realize and you look at their numbers, their business is not doing as great as it possibly could because they're pulling out cash to pay for, to fund this leisure or luxury lifestyle. So that's, I agree with what PT said.
Yeah, and like you said, Pastor, I feel like the decision making is the crux of this, right? Because on the opposite end of the spectrum, I've seen clients who, they've made it to where they are because they're frugal and they are really cost conscious and all of that. And now they have the millions and they're like, nope. I'm not paying for my kids' education. Nope. And so I think that that same mindset and that discipline that got them to where they are is still in place. And it's like, okay, you made a little bit. You can enjoy a little bit. That's okay now.
Okay. All right. So why do you think so many people feel shame about their financial situation instead of seeking help earlier?
Identity. Like, identity. It worth, value, identity, like the negative comparisons of I don't want to say anything or I don't want to ask for help because I don't want it to look like not capable of managing money, or that my worth or my value is not what I believe it should be, or that it has a negative impact on my identity.
Do you think that from that perspective, do you think that falls more on men than women?
I knew you was gonna ask.
Yeah, because me and you have had this conversation before. Yeah.
My wife told me not to be a sexist, so we've had this conversation because I said that I believe that men like we do this a lot, and I was actually gonna say it with the previous question. I know, so for me, and I know we've talked about it. I was raised by a single mom in an apartment, had to share a bed with her. Bought my first house at 23. Fresh out of school, saved up, had enough to be able to furnish. Like I was very fortunate and blessed with the principles that I was able to learn and develop throughout my, college time and then just throughout my professional career. But again, I always meet a lot of guys that say, man, I grew up, I didn't have anything, so I have to buy this expensive thing, right? Like I deserve to buy this, $100,000 car, even though I'm making $50,000 a year, because I grew up and I had to walk to school. And I hear that so much, and that's an excuse, because at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's can you afford it or can you not afford it? If you can't afford it, then you probably shouldn't get it right now, and that's okay. But a lot of times we do make these excuses, especially as men. So,
I deserve, I think, are two of the most dangerous words in English.
I absolutely
Those
agree.
are some dangerous words.
Yeah, I don't know, why do we use that so much? Why is there a mindset that we feel like we deserve certain things that we may not deserve or whatever? Like, why do we feel like because we put in X, Y, and Z that now we deserve?
I mean, it could be a justification for a poor decision. I think in my experience, when I've seen that used, it's usually a justification for a poor financial decision, right? Like, I deserve to purchase, buy, drive, whatever this is, as if your value some kind of way is tied to that particular thing, versus I get to do this or I can choose to do this, but let it be a wise choice when you do choose to do it, versus I deserve. The deserve makes it sound like you're entitled to something, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, just because you exist.
Yeah, I've heard, a podcaster talks about it a lot. He says you don't deserve, you get what you eat, or you get what you kill, right? Like that mindset. That's kind of the mindset that he goes from. Do you all feel the same? Like you get what you work for, you get what you earn? Or is it do you feel like some people do deserve, or so on and so forth?
No, I don't usually look at it as a deserve. I mean, certainly from a theological standpoint, in the economy of God, I was like, we don't deserve anything. Like, we don't deserve anything He allows us to steward. Yeah. So I can't really get on board with that. Like, it's more of it's a privilege to be able to steward what I steward, and I want to steward that well. When I think about that, but I don't usually think about, I deserve it. I don't feel a sense of entitlement to it.
Gotcha.
I think it's a mindset thing, right? And I think for some, it's for all of us, it can be a learned behavior, right? So based on our childhood, our upbringing, or whatever, and then we take that in different places. So like Philip said, for him, it was, okay, because of the way I grew up, I'm going to be even more mindful of this. For others, it might be because of the way I grew up, now that I can, I'm going to, because I deserve it. And to your point about, what did you say? You eat what you kill?
I get what I kill. Like, I eat what I kill. Yeah.
And so even that, like, I kind of feel like maybe, but if you kill it and you're not hungry right now, you don't need to eat, like put it away for later.
Exactly.
And so I think, again, it's that mindset of, yes, maybe I can afford it, but I can afford not to also. And that's okay.
And I'll say, again, to add on what Kristin said, I think it's a lot of, which obviously God's word says iron sharpens iron, but I think you should surround yourself with the right people, right? And like-minded people. I have friends that maybe they splurge a little bit more. I mean, if I didn't have the mindset that I have, I probably would be right there with them, right? Buying the Gucci or the Burberry and all these different things, brands, thinking that it's cool. The $700 Alexander McQueen shoes, just because it looks,
that's insane.
It looks cool, right? But if you're surrounded by that and that's what you see, it's what you're gonna want ultimately. So again, I just think that it can happen a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I know for me, I'm like really headstrong. I've never been that person. I don't care if I got shoes, I'm good. That's always been me. My brother was the Jordans guy. I was like, hey man, just give me the Ewans, I'll be all right. So yeah, that was me. How do you exercise faith with your finances without using faith as an excuse to avoid planning?
Well, I think faith is the motive, and planning is about the decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So faith is the underlying motive of how I view and how I see finances, and I think planning is the decisions that help carry out the motives that I have. So I don't think those things are separate. I think sometimes we've heard in Christian community this idea, you got to step out on faith, and yes, you got to do this, you got to do that.
My God got it.
Yeah, right. But we don't see that in Scripture. Like, we see Joshua planning, we see Nehemiah planning. So we see planning throughout Scripture. Jesus planned. Like, we see planning happening, and so planning is a positive thing. And the Bible has a lot to say about money. Sometimes people don't think so, but the Bible says a lot more about money than it does about love. Like, it said, there's tons of discussion in Scripture about money. So that means that there is some significance about how we steward money and how we deal with it.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I think the two go hand in hand. I think about the Scripture, faith without works is dead. And so to me, the faith fuels the works, almost like it's I think you said the motivation, Pastor. So if we look at even examples of Jesus healing in the Bible, like the woman with the issue of blood, right? Her faith made her whole, but until she took action, she wasn't healed, right? And so I think the faith allows us to take action, and then by that we receive whatever God has for us. And so I think they work hand in hand. The faith kind of fuels the action, and the action in this instance would be planning and preparation.
I'm just thinking about something you just said when you talk about the woman with the issue of blood. She spent all of her money.
Yeah.
And her money alone could not get her what she needed. So money still is you can have plenty of it, and it still is insufficient to get any and everything that you need. Like faith is still that component that you need, like faith in him.
So you would argue that people are using these phrases and these thought processes about faith the wrong way.
Absolutely. I just think that when we start talking about some of the language we use, like, okay, well, if you sow this seed, God's going to come, return and give you this much, or return and give you that much. And it's like, God is not an investment scheme. Like, he's not an investment club. Like, Paul talks about this idea of pouring out. Like, you pour out, I'm being poured out is what Paul says. And that idea of being poured out as a sacrifice, that's everything that you are. That's not, oh, I'm going to sow some of myself or sow something into him. No. You're going to give everything that you are. And you may or may not get back whatever it is you think you're going to get. That may not even be it. But what we miss, I think, in that is that what we get is him. So it's not about sowing something like financially to get something back. No. The greatest thing you're going to get is him. So I'm not seeking to sow something to get something back. So I think the language is wrong. I think the motive is definitely wrong. And I think when the outcome doesn't happen, I think it kills it kills what a little faith they may have.
I've heard some, and I just got to say this. I've heard some pastors and preachers that have said, God don't want us to be poor. So, I can't. I've heard that.
I mean, poverty is a reality of the human experience because of sin. Like, that's just a fact. And the idea that everybody in the body of Christ is going to be financially wealthy, we don't find anything in Scripture to support that idea. However, on this topic, though, when we start talking about the language to sow seeds and things like that, I do believe in generosity as it relates to God and his work, right? I definitely believe in that right off the top, like being generous towards God. And I think part of the reason why for me, theologically, personal experience is that it reminds me of my dependence upon him, right? So I have what I have to be able to steward it. And when I turn around and I'm generous back towards, the kingdom of God, it reminds me I'm dependent on this king. I'm dependent on him to even be able to do what I'm doing in the first place. Versus, thank you for what you gave me. Let me go do whatever I want to do with it. Right. I need to, for me, that may not be everybody else's story. For me, I need to be reminded that you're dependent on me. You wouldn't even have this without me.
And that's something that I always try to remember, is that God is allowing me to save, right? And that's kind of that faith part, because anything can happen. I mean, I know personally for me, I've made plans and they go completely different. Like it never goes the way I want it to go. But we always have to remember that, God willingly, if I can save $500 a month, that can turn into $6,000 a year, whatever the case is. And I can use this for an emergency fund in a rainy day. But maybe God says no, maybe something else happens, right? And I have to put that money to use for something else. But that's where you have to have that faith that, again, he is in control and always in control. He's either allows it to happen or, you chose to make whatever, but he still allowed it to happen, or he makes it happen. So
period. And I think that's like the biggest thing of it all, right? So we can get into the stock market, we can do all of this investing, but at the end of the day, it's all God in his hands, right? And so we have to be reliant on him to bless it, so that we can truly prosper. And as you were talking, Pastor, I was thinking about the parable of the talent when each person got something, right? So yeah, everybody's may not be a millionaire, and that's okay, right? Because God is going to give each of us whatever he desires to give us. What we do with it from there, I think, is where that's what really matters for us, is like making sure that we are stewarding that which he has gave us well, and that we're then bringing it back to him, whatever that looks like.
Right. I can say early on, maybe not that early, but earlier in my walk with the Lord, he reminded me, like, many times of dependence on him. Like, I remember times when I would get paid and I would be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. I wasn't thinking about being generous towards the Lord at all. I had all these plans for my money. And I promise y'all, every time something came along, some that always would come along, like nail in the tire. I remember one time I'm riding down the road and a truck in front of me, the exhaust backfired and the pressure from that came back up into my car and shattered the sunroof of my car. Like just something random and crazy. Like, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you cannot be for real right now.
Man.
And there would just constantly be like these little things. And it always felt to me, and this is just in my experience, my wife probably like, no, I wasn't no feeling. I was just like broke. Like I just didn't, like it wasn't, like there was no disposable income. And when I started being generous towards him, like other things fell into place. It wasn't, I'm not saying it was just simply because I was being generous. More money came. But I stewarded better because my focus was different. And so because I started to steward better, then when the tire had a nail in it, oh, okay, I just got to take care of that, and I can take care of that, right? But I'm still being generous towards God. Like it was a complete perspective and mind shift that went along with that. Like I want to be able to do this. This is a privilege to be able to be generous towards him.
Real quick, let's talk some quick strategies here. I want to get you all's thoughts. How do you rebuild financially when you've taken a hard hit?
I feel like you should, well, number one, seek counsel. You know, I think that's very important. You put that pride to the side, as I like to say. You know, a lot of people, they are afraid to ask for help, and they rather dig a hole and get themselves even deeper because they're like, oh, I have to get myself out of this. But we have to remember, again, either God allows it to happen or he makes it to happen. So it's one of those things where a lot of people typically feel like I'm just going to do it by myself, and I don't want to, you know, if I lost a job, whatever the case is, I'm just going to try to figure it out. But you can always call the mortgage company and just ask, like, hey, can I, I lost my job. Can I have a deferment of a mortgage payment? You know, and some people don't even want to do that. And I feel like we have those resources and we have it available to us. So that's the first thing I would say.
Okay.
And a part of that can be just Googling it, right? Because I'm sure people are like, well, who do I ask for help? And do I have to pay them? Because I don't have the money to pay them. So maybe just taking advantage of the resources that are free and out there. And so that could be, to your point, that could be calling the mortgage company. That could be calling your student loans and putting that in forbearance. That could be going and getting unemployment. In this economy, a lot of people are getting laid off. Some people may say, I don't want the unemployment. Everything that you have coming to you. So, seeking the unemployment, if you have credit card bills, calling the credit card companies and seeing if you can make arrangements there, doing the budget so you can get a good understanding of what you have coming in and you can stop the bleeding. And that's the biggest thing is like, okay, what's going out unnecessarily? So stopping the subscriptions, all of those things, I think kind of help us to reset and then go from there. And I think having things like the rainy day fund, the emergency fund, they kind of help us or prevent us sometimes from getting to those points in the first place. Those are the things I would say.
I would also say, if we're in that situation, looking at what assets we have available that maybe this may be time to get rid of, liquidate, sell, whatever, if we need additional income to offset something. So that could be a great opportunity to look at that. We truthfully, we have a gig economy now where people can get, short-term gigs based on skills and things that they can do short-term to make extra money to fill certain gaps that they may be dealing with at that time. So, if that works for their lifestyle, right? So they may be able to do certain things like, hey, I need to close this gap. I can go do this particular thing, close the gap, make some money to be able to do that. So I also think about that. So I think it's like they've said, stop the bleeding, obviously, but also looking for, are there assets that I already have that I can do something with to help me in this situation?
And so I do want to say this. I'm pretty sure that Phil and Kristin have a lot more insight to be able to give you. If you are in the Rockwall area, we are having a Faith and Finance Summit right here at the church December 6th. What we're going to do is we're just going to put the registration thingy down somewhere in here. We'll do it, but you can go ahead and sign up for that, and they'll give you all the tips, the tricks, the nuggets, and all of those things, and make it understandable and easier for the everyday person, because it's not complicated, as Kristin said. Before we get out of here, though, Kristin, how can they find you and get in touch with you?
Yes, so I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I am Kristin Y. Hall on Facebook and KY Hall 10 on Instagram. I'm not really a social media person. And Kristin Y. Hall on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. All right. And Phil?
I am just on LinkedIn. I probably need to get on social media. I'm one of those conspiracy theorists about it, but just Philip Brown, Philip with one L, on LinkedIn, and then that's pretty much it. So yeah. Oh, and then my website, www.echoadvisorysol.com. So yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to encourage, all of our watchers, those who are tuned in, to be sure to set aside time to definitely join us for the summit. This is a great opportunity, no matter where you are from an income standpoint, no matter where you are from an investment strategy standpoint. Maybe you do have somebody working with investments. This still is an opportunity to gain additional knowledge. This is the opportunity to maybe ask some questions with some professionals. Your portfolio may be small and may be large, but the people that we have that are participating in the summit will be able to help those with zero in a portfolio all the way up. So I think it will be an amazing opportunity. It's also a great opportunity, I think, for us to bring out our children, especially if they're of age, to be able to begin to understand investment strategies. One of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about today that I do want to say is that this is something that we as adults, parents, can begin to work with our children on, and helping them to begin to even do some investments and things, especially because they don't typically have debt to deal with, right? Imagine if you're teaching your young one to be able to invest even small amounts, and they continue to do that, what that looks like for them when they are of age to be able to launch. I mean, some of them could be launching with $20,000 or $30,000 or more, just in monies that they've accumulated over time. So please join us. I want to encourage you to join us for the summit.
And in addition to Philip and I being there, we will have an estate planning attorney that's there doing a session. So for those that have questions about how do I write a will, or how do I make sure that when I pass away, my house is left to my children and doesn't have to go through probate, there'll be someone there answering those questions. Also someone there that is an expert in life insurance. So Pastor, you mentioned life insurance earlier. For those that have questions about, should I get a term policy? Should I get a permanent policy? There will be professionals there with years of experience to answer all of those questions, and to begin to share knowledge so that we can gain a deeper understanding.
Absolutely. Phil, I mean, everybody was going down the line. I didn't know if you had something left.
I just want to say kind of I'm going to be a dad soon. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So it's something,
Okay, there we go.
oh, wow, we taking it there. Okay. No, I really just want to say that I know when I was younger, it was always about generational wealth. And I would always think of wealth in a form of currency or money. But now that I'm thinking about it, my perspective has changed. I really think it should be in a form of knowledge as well. So as Pastor Thomas said, showing your kids how to save, how to build up accounts and put money and invest, I think that's something that they can take for the rest of their lives. Right. And they can teach the next generation and so on and so forth. So that's just all. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. All right. Well, you've heard it here. Don't forget, we're going to put the information for the Faith and Finance Summit down in the description. We're also going to put all of their information down in the description as well, so you can check it out. Like, share, subscribe, get all of this information out, because this is some really good nuggets that we could all use. Even them themselves, they use it because it's something that they want to continue to put inside themselves. And so it's not something that we're just saying to you all. It's something that we're all continuing to use. So we thank you guys. Remember, this is not just a Sunday talk. This is an everyday walk, and we will see you all next time.